Marcus Thompson stood outside the gun store, adjusting his worn baseball cap one more time before pushing open the heavy glass door. The bell above chimed softly as he stepped inside, immediately feeling the weight of several pairs of eyes turning toward him. At 22 years old, Marcus looked younger than his age, with a slight build that made him appear more like a college student than someone seeking tactical equipment. The store was impressive, lined wall to wall with firearms, tactical gear, and military surplus equipment. Glass cases displayed handguns while rifles hung in neat rows behind the counter. The smell of gun oil and leather filled the air, creating an atmosphere that felt both professional and intimidating. Behind the main counter stood 3 employees, all appearing to be in their 30s or 40s. The tallest one, wearing a black polo shirt with the store's logo, had arms covered in military tattoos. His name tag read Jake. Next to him stood a shorter, stockier man named Dennis, whose thick beard couldn't hide his smirk as he looked Marcus up and down. The third employee, Rick, was organizing ammunition boxes but kept glancing over with obvious amusement. "Can we help you, son?" Jake asked, his tone already carrying a hint of condescension. The way he emphasized son made it clear he didn't think Marcus belonged in this store. Marcus approached the counter with quiet confidence, despite feeling the judgment radiating from the 3 men. "Yes, I'm looking for some specific tactical equipment. I need a plate carrier, level 4 body armor plates, and some other gear." Dennis let out a small chuckle, exchanging glances with his co-workers. "Tactical equipment? You sure you're in the right place, kid? Maybe you're looking for the sporting goods store down the street. They've got some nice paintball gear." The comment drew laughter from Rick, who stopped pretending to organize ammunition and joined the conversation. "Yeah, or maybe you need gear for one of those video games? Call of Duty, right?" Marcus remained calm, his expression unchanged. "No, I need real equipment. Professional grade. I can pay cash." This statement only seemed to amuse them more. Jake leaned against the counter, looking Marcus up and down with obvious skepticism. "Professional grade? What exactly do you need this stuff for? You joining the military or something?" "Something like that," Marcus replied simply, not elaborating further. Dennis wiped his hands on a rag, shaking his head with amusement. "Look, kid, this isn't the kind of stuff you buy on a whim. Real tactical gear costs serious money. We're talking thousands of dollars for quality equipment. Are you sure your mom gave you enough allowance for that?" The other 2 employees burst into laughter at Dennis's joke. A few customers in the store turned to see what was so funny, making Marcus the center of unwanted attention. "I understand the costs," Marcus said quietly. "Could you show me what you have available?" Rick stepped closer to the counter, still grinning. "What you need, son, is maybe a nice airsoft rifle and some plastic armor. Much more in your budget range. There's a toy store in the mall that might have what you're looking for." Jake nodded in agreement. "Seriously, kid, Rail operators don't shop alone. They come in with their teams, they know exactly what they want, and they don't waste our time asking to see stuff they can't afford." Marcus reached into his back pocket and pulled out a thick roll of cash, setting it on the counter. The bills were crisp hundreds, neatly organized and held together with a simple rubber band. "I said I can pay cash. Now, can you show me the equipment or should I take my business elsewhere?" The sight of the money made the 3 employees pause for a moment, but their skepticism quickly returned. Dennis picked up the roll, flipping through it briefly before setting it back down. "Nice prop money, kid. You get this from a movie set? Looks pretty real." "It is real," Marcus said, his patience beginning to wear thin. "I'm a paying customer asking to see merchandise. This is how business works." Jake crossed his arms, his attitude becoming more aggressive. "Look, kid, we don't know where you got this money, but we're not in the business of selling serious tactical equipment to someone who looks like he should be asking for help with his homework. Maybe you should head home and come back when your dad can vouch for you." Rick joined in, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Yeah, or better yet, maybe you should tell us what you really plan to do with tactical gear. Because from where we're standing, this doesn't look right." Young kid, lots of cash, wants military-grade equipment? That raises red flags. Marcus felt his jaw tighten, but he maintained his composure. I'm not required to explain my legal purchases to you. I'm asking to see equipment that you have for sale to the public. Either you want to make a sale or you don't. Dennis laughed outright. Legal purchases? Kid, you're not even old enough to buy a handgun. What makes you think you can handle real tactical equipment? This stuff isn't a costume for playing soldier. The mockery continued as other customers began to take notice. An older man browsing hunting rifles turned to watch the exchange, shaking his head with disapproval at Marcus. A middle-aged woman looking at pepper spray whispered something to her husband, who also turned to stare. Jake seemed to be enjoying the spectacle. Tell you what, kid. Why don't you go home, finish high school, maybe do a tour or two in the military, and then come back when you actually know what you're talking about? Real operators earn their gear through service, not by showing up with mysterious wads of cash. I've served, Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying a slight edge for the first time. This statement caused all three employees to break into laughter. Rick slapped the counter, shaking his head. Served what? Served lunch in the school cafeteria? Kid, you look like you're barely old enough to drive, let alone serve in any military capacity. Dennis pointed at Marcus's appearance. Look at you. No military bearing, no confidence, no knowledge of equipment specifications. If you've served anywhere, it was maybe as a volunteer at summer camp. Jake leaned forward, his voice becoming more aggressive. Real veterans don't have to prove themselves to gun store clerks, son. They carry themselves differently. They talk differently. They know what they want and why they want it. You're just some kid with cash who watched too many movies. Marcus stood perfectly still, his hands resting calmly at his sides despite the growing tension. The mockery was getting louder, drawing more attention from other customers. Some seemed amused by the spectacle, while others appeared uncomfortable with how the employees were treating a potential customer. Maybe we should call his parents, Rick suggested with a grin. Let them know their son is trying to buy tactical equipment with money he probably shouldn't have. Dennis nodded enthusiastically. Good idea. Or better yet, maybe we should call the police. Young kid with lots of cash wanting military equipment? Could be stolen money, could be planning something stupid. Either way, it's suspicious. The suggestion of calling the police made Marcus's expression harden slightly, but he remained silent. He had dealt with skepticism and discrimination before, but rarely had it been so public and humiliating. Jake pulled out his phone, making a show of scrolling through his contacts. You know what? I think I will make some calls. See if anyone's missing some money, see if there are any reports of suspicious activity involving young men matching your description. The three employees were clearly enjoying themselves now, feeding off each other's energy and the attention they were receiving from the growing audience of customers. What had started as simple skepticism had escalated into full-blown harassment. Marcus looked around the store, noting the faces watching him with various expressions of amusement, curiosity, and disapproval. He had been in difficult situations before, but this public humiliation was testing his patience in ways that combat never had. The front door chimed again as new customers entered, but Marcus didn't turn around. He was focused on maintaining his composure while deciding how to handle the situation that was rapidly spiraling out of control. The bell above the door chimed again, but this time it seemed to ring with more authority. Marcus didn't turn around immediately, still focused on the three employees who were continuing their mockery. Jake was still holding his phone, pretending to dial while Dennis and Rick exchanged knowing looks. Seriously, kid, Dennis was saying, maybe you should just take your Monopoly money and head home before this gets more embarrassing for you. Behind Marcus, footsteps approached with a distinct rhythm. Not the casual shuffle of regular customers, but the measured, purposeful stride of individuals who moved with precision and confidence. The sound made Jake look up from his phone, his expression shifting slightly as he saw the new arrivals. 7 men had entered the store, and their presence immediately changed the atmosphere. They moved with the fluid coordination of a team, spreading out naturally to cover the space without appearing threatening to other customers. Their clothing was civilian casual jeans, t-shirts, baseball caps, but something about their bearing set them apart from everyone else in the store. The first man to reach the counter was tall and broad-shouldered, with graying hair at his temples and intense blue eyes that missed nothing. His presence commanded attention without any effort on his part. Behind him, 6 other men took positions around the store, appearing to browse merchandise while actually maintaining awareness of every person and exit. "Gentlemen," the tall man said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that made people listen. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation with my friend here." Jake, Dennis, and Rick suddenly found themselves facing someone who radiated the kind of confidence they had been claiming Marcus lacked. The tall man's calm demeanor was somehow more intimidating than any aggressive posturing could have been. "Your friend?" Dennis asked, uncertainty creeping into his voice for the first time. The tall man placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, a gesture that spoke of familiarity and respect. "Marcus Thompson. One of the finest operators I've had the privilege of working with. Tell me, what seems to be the problem here?" Marcus finally turned around, and, for the first time since entering the store, a small smile crossed his face. "Commander Mitchell. I was just trying to purchase some equipment, but these gentlemen seem to think I'm not qualified to make that decision." Commander Mitchell's eyes swept over the 3 employees with the kind of assessment that made them fidget uncomfortably. "Not qualified? That's interesting. Marcus, remind me of your service record." Marcus straightened slightly, his demeanor shifting from the patient civilian he had been portraying to something more recognizable to those who understood military bearing. 5 years active duty, Navy SEALs. 3 deployments to Afghanistan, 2 to Iraq. Multiple classified operations I can't discuss in public. The transformation in Marcus was immediate and unmistakable. The quiet young man who had been enduring mockery was revealed as something else entirely. His posture, his tone, his entire presence shifted to reflect the professional soldier he actually was. Dennis's face had gone pale. "Navy SEALs? But you look so young?" Commander Mitchell supplied helpfully. Marcus enlisted at 17 with his parents' permission. Completed SEAL training at 19. By 21, he was leading operations that most people will never know happened. Age isn't always an indicator of experience, gentlemen. Rick cleared his throat nervously. We didn't know. He didn't say anything about being military." "He shouldn't have to," came a voice from behind them. Another of the 7 men had approached, this one sporting a thick beard and forearms that spoke of serious physical conditioning. His name tag, if he had been wearing one, might have read Senior Chief Peterson. In my experience, real operators don't feel the need to justify themselves to civilians. Jake was still holding his phone, but his earlier bravado had evaporated completely. "Look, we get a lot of kids in here pretending to be military. We were just being cautious." Commander Mitchell nodded understandingly, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Cautious. I appreciate that. Tell me, what's your military background? Your experience with tactical equipment?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Jake's military tattoos suddenly seemed less impressive under the scrutiny of actual special operations personnel. I served 4 years in the Army. Motor pool." "Motor pool," repeated another of the 7 men, this one shorter but with the kind of compact build that suggested explosive power. "Important work. Logistics win wars. But probably didn't involve much tactical equipment evaluation." Dennis tried to recover some dignity. "We sell this equipment every day. We know what we're talking about." "Do you?" Commander Mitchell asked mildly. He gestured toward the tactical vests displayed behind the counter. "Tell me about the ballistic rating on that plate carrier there." The one Marcus was interested in. Dennis glanced at the equipment, then back at the commander. It's rated for rifle rounds." "What specific rating?" pressed Senior Chief Peterson. "NIJ level IIIA?" Level 3? Level 4? What's the multi-hit capability? What's the trauma reduction? The silence that followed made it clear that Dennis didn't know the technical specifications of the equipment he was selling. Jake tried to help by reading from a tag, but his pronunciation of technical terms made it obvious he didn't understand what he was saying. Marcus watched the exchange with quiet satisfaction. The 7 men surrounding him represented some of the most elite military personnel in the world, and their presence was making the store employees realize just how badly they had misjudged the situation. A 4th member of the group, distinguished by a slight limp that spoke of combat injuries, stepped forward. Marcus here has personally tested equipment under conditions that would make your training scenarios look like summer camp. When he needs gear, it's because he's going somewhere dangerous to do something important. We support several active duty teams, added another team member, this one with the lean build of a marathon runner. Marcus does consulting work for us. Private sector now, but still very much in the game. The revelation that Marcus was not just former military, but currently working in private security consulting, made the employees' earlier mockery seem even more inappropriate. They had been making fun of someone who was probably more qualified to evaluate tactical equipment than they were. Commander Mitchell turned his attention back to the equipment display. Now, Marcus was interested in purchasing some gear. I believe he mentioned having cash available? Marcus pulled out the roll of bills again, but this time the employees looked at it with very different eyes. Money that had seemed suspicious coming from a young civilian now made perfect sense coming from a professional contractor. Of course, Jake stammered. We'd be happy to help him find what he needs. Excellent, Commander Mitchell said. And I'm sure you'll extend the same professional courtesy and military discount that you offer to all service members? The military discount hadn't been mentioned before, and all 3 employees knew it. But, under the current circumstances, arguing about store policy seemed unwise. Rick nodded eagerly. Absolutely. Military discount. And we'll make sure he gets the best equipment we have available. Senior Chief Peterson smiled, but it wasn't entirely friendly. That's very generous of you. I'm sure Marcus appreciates the change in attitude. The other customers in the store had been watching the entire exchange with fascination. The transformation in the store employees' behavior was dramatic and obvious to everyone present. What had started as public humiliation for Marcus had become public embarrassment for the staff. One of the 7 men, who had been quietly examining rifles in a nearby rack, called over to Commander Mitchell. Sir, you might want to see this. They've got some interesting equipment back here. As the group moved through the store, their expertise became evident in their conversations about various weapons and gear. They discussed technical specifications, operational applications, and real-world performance with the kind of knowledge that could only come from extensive experience. The store employees followed at a respectful distance, no longer attempting to assert their authority or question anyone's qualifications. The dynamic in the store had shifted completely, and everyone present understood the new reality. Marcus found himself surrounded by teammates who had risked their lives with him, who had seen him perform under pressure that most people couldn't imagine. Their presence validated not just his military service, but his current work and his right to be treated with respect. Commander Mitchell examined the plate carrier that Marcus had originally requested, running his experienced hands over the material and checking the attachment points with the thoroughness of someone whose life had depended on equipment quality. The store had grown quieter as other customers sensed the tension and either left or moved to the far corners to avoid the situation. This is decent gear, the commander announced, holding up the tactical vest. Not the best on the market, but it'll do the job. Marcus, what's your time frame for deployment? 2 weeks, Marcus replied, his voice now carrying the professional tone that his teammates recognized. Private security contract in Syria. 6-month rotation. The casual mention of Syria made the 3 store employees exchange nervous glances. This wasn't someone buying gear for weekend warrior activities or home defense. This was operational equipment for actual combat zones. Senior Chief Peterson picked up one of the ballistic plates, testing its weight and examining the trauma reduction padding. Level 4 rating. Should handle most rifle threats you'll encounter over there.
What about communications equipment?
You'll need encrypted radios.
Jake cleared his throat hesitantly. We don't carry military-grade communication equipment. That requires special licensing.
Of course it does, said the team member with the slight limp, whose name was Chief Williams. Marcus, you'll need to go through proper channels for comms.
I can put you in touch with our supplier. Dennis, desperate to salvage some credibility, jumped in. We do have some civilian radios that might work for basic communication needs.
The look that Senior Chief Peterson gave him could have frozen water.
Civilian radios? For operations in a combat zone? Are you seriously suggesting that someone heading into hostile territory should rely on equipment you can buy at an electronics store?
The rebuke was delivered quietly, but its impact was devastating. Dennis realized he had just suggested equipment that could get someone killed, and his face reddened with embarrassment. Marcus continued selecting equipment with the help of his teammates, each item chosen with specific operational requirements in mind. Night vision compatible helmet, tactical gloves rated for ropework, modular ammunition pouches designed for quick reloading under stress. Every selection demonstrated knowledge that came from real-world application rather than catalog descriptions. What about medical supplies? Asked another team member, Petty Officer Rodriguez.
Field trauma kit, blood clotting agents, emergency medications?
Already sorted through our medical supplier, Marcus replied.
Can't trust civilian medical equipment for serious trauma. Rick tried to contribute helpfully. We have some first aid kits. Chief Williams turned to look at him with genuine amazement. First aid kits?
Son, we're talking about equipment to treat gunshot wounds, explosive injuries, and severe trauma in locations where the nearest hospital is hundreds of miles away.
Band-aids and antiseptic cream aren't going to cut it. The educational aspect of the conversation was becoming clear to everyone present.
The Seven SEALs weren't just supporting their teammate, they were demonstrating the vast difference between civilian assumptions about tactical equipment and the reality of professional military needs. Commander Mitchell completed his inspection of the gear Marcus had selected.
Everything looks good. Quality equipment, properly rated for the threat environment. Jake, what's the total with the military discount?
Jake frantically worked the calculator, applying discounts he had never offered before and hoping his math was correct. With the military discount, that comes to $4,200. Marcus counted out the cash without hesitation, the bills crisp and legitimate. The same money that had been dismissed as prop money an hour earlier was now being accepted with gratitude and respect. As Marcus completed his purchase, other customers in the store began to approach the group. Word had spread quietly among the patrons about who they were dealing with, and several people wanted to express their appreciation for the military service. An elderly veteran from Vietnam shook hands with each of the SEALs, sharing brief stories of his own service.
A young college student thanked them for their sacrifice.
A mother with two small children pointed out the men to her kids, explaining quietly about the people who keep the country safe. The contrast with the treatment Marcus had received upon entering the store could not have been more stark. The same person who had been mocked and dismissed was now being thanked for his service by grateful civilians.
Dennis approached Marcus hesitantly as the transaction was being completed.
Listen, I want to apologize for earlier. We get a lot of kids in here, and sometimes we make assumptions.
Marcus looked at him calmly. The issue isn't that you were cautious about selling equipment. The issue is that you were disrespectful to a customer based on assumptions about age and appearance. Real professionals can spot other professionals regardless of what they look like. Senior Chief Peterson added his perspective.
In our line of work, we meet operators who look like teenagers and teenagers who've seen more combat than some veterans.
You can't judge capability by appearance.
Commander Mitchell gathered the group's attention.
Gentlemen, we should be moving. Marcus, your equipment will serve you well. Stay safe over there, and remember what we taught you about situational awareness.
As the SEALs prepared to leave, Jake made one final attempt to salvage the situation.
Commander, if you ever need equipment for your team, we'd be honored to serve you. Military discount, of course. Commander Mitchell paused at the door, considering the offer. That's generous. But, understand, when we recommend suppliers, we base those recommendations on how they treat all service members, not just the ones who come in with obvious credentials. Marcus deserved better treatment from the moment he walked through that door. The lesson was clear and pointed. The store had lost more than just Marcus's business, they had lost the potential business of an entire special operations network because of their unprofessional conduct. After the SEALs left, the store felt different. The three employees stood behind the counter in uncomfortable silence, processing what had just happened. Other customers continued to browse, but many kept glancing toward the counter where such a dramatic reversal of fortune had just taken place. Rick was the first to speak. "We really screwed that up, didn't we?" Dennis nodded slowly. "That guy could probably buy and sell this whole store, and we treated him like a kid with stolen money." Jake looked at the business card Commander Mitchell had left on the counter. It bore the logo of a private military contracting firm that Jake recognized from news reports about high-profile security operations. The implications of having insulted one of their consultants were starting to sink in. Over the following weeks, word of the incident spread through the military and law enforcement community that frequented the store. The story of the young SEAL contractor who had been mocked until his teammates arrived became well known, and not in a way that reflected well on the store's staff. Several regular customers, upon hearing the story, decided to take their business elsewhere. Military personnel began recommending other suppliers to their colleagues. The store's reputation within the professional community suffered lasting damage from those few minutes of poor judgment. Marcus, meanwhile, successfully completed his deployment in Syria. His equipment performed flawlessly, protecting him through several dangerous situations where lesser gear might have failed. When he returned, he had additional contracts waiting and a growing reputation in the private security world. The incident at the gun store became a story he occasionally shared with new team members about the importance of respect and professionalism. It served as a reminder that in their world, capability and experience couldn't always be judged by appearance, and that treating everyone with dignity was both morally right and professionally wise. The three store employees eventually learned to be more respectful in their customer interactions, but they never forgot the day they mocked a Navy SEAL and lived to regret it. The lesson about judging people by their cover rather than their character had been delivered with devastating effectiveness by 7 of America's most elite warriors. Marcus continued his work in private security, earning respect through performance rather than demanding it through credentials. But he never forgot that sometimes respect had to be earned not just through individual achievement, but through the loyalty and support of brothers in arms who would always have his back.